Necropolis, a sprawling, expansive, and unforgiving roguelike, which punishes mistakes with the swift hand of death. It's a game people are quick to compare with the franchise of Dark Souls, and with good reason. Its similarities are undeniable. The game oozes with mystery. A prime example of this is the seemingly revered, or even worshipped, figure of a pyramid with a single glowing blue eye that is given little explanation in this dark and foreboding place. The long, ominous corridors with huge open windows, masses of gem-filled pottery and golden sconces, as well as the abundance of statues and even people adorning the same pyramid heads that seem to bear such significance, definitely give the game a feeling of grandeur. Not to mention the many immense contraptions operated by opulent glowing energy crystals that you find constantly throughout the floors. Wide open air places like this provide a glimpse at the immense scale of the dungeon you find yourself in. Which is so vast in fact, that you can find yourself walking between areas of completely different climates, like from marshy swamps, to ice, and to snow. But for a game which graphics are composed entirely of large angular geometric shapes, the world is awe-inspiring. Its Egyptian-inspired architecture and randomly generated level design keep things fresh and interesting, even into hours of play and into countless deaths. As within the multitude of floors and areas, spanning multiple different biomes, exist a plethora of hazards, enemies, and threats, all with their own cryptic but detailed lore, that I intend to uncover and explain, at least to some degree in this video, and possibly future ones to come, if received well. The servants, prisoners, and subjects of the Necropolis are split up into many different factions, including humans, shape-shifting lizards, skeletons, anthropomorphic sharks, arachnids, pus-ridden infected, and many, many more, as well as variants of some created from a red crystalline substance that is rife within the Necropolis, known as the Grine. So sit back and enjoy, as I attempt to cover the lore behind some of the Necropolis's monsters. Hordemen are some of the most common enemies in the game, and one of the most varied. Early on they're weak and frail, but late game can become some of the tankiest enemies to face, and some of the few you still might fear, even with a very strong build. Hordemen are withered shells of mighty warriors, who have lost themselves and their minds to the Necropolis. You can see this in their wild and erratic style of attack. They provide the player with a rather pessimistic idea of their potential future, as well as an indication of the level of challenge presented to anyone unfortunate enough to have been trapped there. But not only do they provide an idea of the player's potential future, but also hint at the suggestion of how people might have arrived in the Necropolis in the first place. Hordemen are people that have made unfortunate mistakes in their lives, as we can tell from the description of one of the weapons that they commonly use, the cracked longsword. When choosing between this weapon and, let's say, a rabbit, go with the rabbit. Possibly the mistake our character too made to wind up trapped here. Over time, the Hordemen age and wither away, kept alive by the sheer, latent, resonating power of the Necropolis, and by plot convenience, until eventually their flesh rots off the bone, and all that's left is an animated skeleton, existing only through the powers that drove them to madness in the first place. On occasion, the player will find bones and corpses around the Necropolis that are inanimate, because they died before the forces that drove others insane could work its way into their minds. In fact, there are skeletons of people that resemble other players found scattered around, often trapped in corners or by doorways that they weren't fast enough to open, and even stacked in piles, hung from beams, or brutally impaled on spikes. And there's that one in the starting lobby area, where clearly the player just went AFK for too long when one of the doors was still open. The anthropomorphic sharks, known as gem eaters, are the most deadly enemies you can encounter from the get-go, often able to kill you in less than 3 hits, and can tank at least double that. But that's not to say, however, that their late game equivalents aren't a threat. They can sometimes carve off half of your health in a single blow, and with their ability to knock you down due to their size, you can quite easily be stopped in your tracks by just a few of them. Their existence is somewhat of an enigma. Such a bizarre creature certainly doesn't seem likely to be natural, and this is probably the case. I mean, they look fucking weird. Merchants sell crafting recipes for a throwable item that upon impact spawns one of these creatures to fight for you. So it is likely that gem eaters only exist because of the thousands of people who fought in these dungeons long before your arrival, who have now become horde men. This theory can also be supported in the fact that the gem eaters and horde men never fight with one another. Another large and dangerous enemy that you encounter, but this time in the mid to late game, are giant fucking anatomical robotic pyramid-headed gorillas. But why do they exist? No, seriously, why did these things even exist? They're clearly capable of making massive humanoid death robots. There's even statues of them all over the place, so why did they feel the need to make a massive fucking gorilla robot as well? Possibly it's their way of reminding us that the Illuminati did Harambe. And finally, one of the most dangerous enemies in the game, feared even by players with the toughest armor and weaponry in their arsenal, the bone effigies. There is little information on these monsters, or why they exist, but clearly they are a reference to the Dark Souls human effigies, which are used to restore a player's humanity. Which is ironic, given that fighting these bone effigies can easily result in dying, which would cause you to lose it. But one thing I have managed to work out upon fighting these enemies multiple times, is that they are really fucking annoying! And, spiders are just spiders. Enough said.